conversation is about a word that most workplaces have underestimated for far too long. And that's joy. Not forced positivity or superficial fun, and not lowering standards in the name of culture. My guest is Sheryl Raphael Whitaker. She's a leadership transformation expert, founder and CEO of Eden Anthony, and the author of It Starts With Joy, the inner shift that changes everything. After more than 35 years working across Fortune 100 companies, Sheryl now helps leaders move from overload, disconnection, and pressure into a more grounded, authentic, and influential way of leading. In our conversation, we unpack why joy may be far more than a nice to have for companies. It might actually be one of the missing ingredients behind better leadership, healthier teams, and stronger performance over time. So welcome to the Working Well podcast. We're the show that explores the critical intersection of leadership, business strategy, and sustainable human performance, plus how those areas are defining the future of work. I'm your host, Tim Borys. All right, Sheryl, so great to have you back on the show. Now, for those listening, Sheryl and I did an interview back in March, and as the world of technology goes, we had some issues, and I didn't realize it at the time, but my podcast editor said, hey, half your episode's missing. So Sheryl has been so kind to come back on and do this interview again. So we'll upgrade and improve even from last time, which was awesome.
I know. I was actually like, all right, gives me another chance to talk to Tim. We had such a great conversation. So I'm like, it's all good on my end.
Well, thank you again so much for your patience and generosity to come back on and share your wisdom. And so let's just jump right in because we've got lots of amazing things to talk about. And as you said, we had an incredible conversation last time that, sorry, everyone who's listening got to miss out on the first one, but you get version 2. So
it'll be even better this time.
Yeah. So you talk about joy. In your background, it starts with joy. Love that.
Thank you.
Joy is not the word most people expect to hear in a conversation about leadership and organizational performance. So let's start there. Well, why joy and why now in our workforce?
Oh, well, I'll start with why now, and then I'll tell you everything that you need to know about why joy. Definitely why now, because Tim, our leaders, I'm finding, and you tell me what you think, finding that our leaders are just a bit lost. And what I mean by lost is that we are missing from ourselves. And that's because there's so many different things that are going on in our world right now. Disruption, engagement numbers are low, layoffs, high expectations, budget crunch. I mean, there's just like so many different things that are happening and that are expected of our leaders that there's got to be some way for everybody to get back to themselves and then to lead from that place. And so when I started thinking about what my leadership point of view is, I couldn't stop thinking about my own experience in leadership over 30 something years and what were the things that were challenging me. And I realized that ultimately at the end of the day, I was always at my best, steadfast and sure if I led from that place of joy.
And you bring up an interesting point, and I was actually having I did a presentation on Wednesday and was talking to a bunch of people around, it was an HR event. And so many times in work these days, people tolerate things in the workplace because they just think it's normal. That's just what work is.
Yes.
And so how do you overcome that mindset of, well, it's the way it is. Why fight the system?
How exhausting is that? Right? What do you say? Like, be the change you want to see in the world. Right? I mean, and yeah, it is very, very easy to get to the point where you just kind of like, oh, you know what? Hey, this is what it is. And this is a lot that I chose in my life. But as far as we know, we have got one chance around this, magic carpet ride. And so from where I sit, it's not too late to change. It's not too late to change your mindset or your perspective and get back to and you really, really get back to yourself and then to lead from that place if you can.
And I'll just put it out there now because I'm sure lots of listeners are already thinking, Joy, like this is the soft stuff. Like, let's get to the real heart of business. And
Mhm.
so you come from like a real heart of business background. So
Yeah.
talk to me about first the how you overcome that. Joy is the soft stuff, the soft skills, or like a fluff thing.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear more about your story, and I'm sure the listeners want to know how you got to, starting with joy.
Okay, so oh boy, it's interesting. I had a conversation with someone in one of my prior organizations, and I said, if all 40,000 employees who are sitting here working right now in a variety of different places, departments, etc., if everybody won the lottery on the same day and quit on the same day, how long would it take before that organization falls apart? And most people would say that it would take maybe a day or two. And so I'm like, okay, so can we all agree that at the end of the day, we're talking about the human being here? The humans still matter. And in this age of AI, human beings matter more than ever before. A Gallup poll just came out not too long ago, a couple of months ago, talking about employee engagement, and the numbers are the worst they've been since 2020. And then on top of that, leaders are even worse. Leaders are disengaging at a faster rate than their employees are. So the very people that we are counting on in the organization to lead everyone through transformation and be out front, making it happen, we as leaders are disengaging at a faster rate. People are ending up in the hospital. Folks are burning out. Yeah, I mean, it's like a pandemic of burnout that's going on. And how are we supposed to move organizations and teams into the future if if we're stressed and burnt down, tired? And to your point earlier, some thinking like, well, this is normal, or giving up. Can't do that, right?
Mhm.
So we've got to do something about it. And so as far as my story goes, when I when I got to the point in my career where I realized that my organization and I were going to part ways, I had to really think about what was going to be next for me. Am I going to go back into the rat race and do the thing? All right, I was head of learning, and I mean, I've worked my whole entire career to get to that type of role. Am I just going to go back into another organization and do that, or am I going to take a beat and bet on myself and perhaps have a greater impact? Because when you're working in an organization, I was able to impact that organization. But on my own, and with my message, I'm like, yeah, I might be able to actually impact more people. And when I started really, really thinking about my point of view, I first started out with happiness, Tim, because I thought that joy was a little bit too deep. People might think there's a lot of like different thoughts and feelings that are attached to that word joy. It's in religion, and people think about it in holiday time. It's a reward that comes to you at some point in time later. It's about when people get happiness and joy confused all the time. But when I really, right? But
I was
when I,
going to say, how do you differentiate though? Before we should just do a little side
oh
there.
yeah, sure, sure. The easiest way I think about it is if you've ever gone, I know you've been out flying many, many times. We all have been on an airplane. On a very sunny day, you can see the sky, no problem. But on those days when it's super cloudy and you're looking out at the sky and you're like, I gotta get on a plane and get through those clouds. And when it's a deep cloud cover, it is easy to think that that is like it. The whole entire earth is covered in this cloud. But when you get through those clouds, especially on like during the day, you get above the clouds, it is sunny and the sky is blue. And then you think to yourself, like, wow, this has been here all the time. So I like to say that happiness is the weather joy is the sky. So that the weather, it comes and goes, it's circumstantial. It's going to pass. The clouds will pass. Happiness will pass. You could be happy 1 second, something will happen, and then you're no longer happy. But joy is deeper than that. It is really deeply foundational. And I like to say in integrity and in alignment with who I am.
Yeah, I'm hearing a bit more like the fulfillment and purpose would be behind the joy, whereas happiness and is a mood that
Yeah.
comes and goes in the moment.
Yeah, you know they say happenstance,
Yeah,
right? Happenstance, circumstance,
yeah,
happiness. Yeah. But joy is deeper.
fantastic. Well, thank you for that little like side detour. I
Yeah.
think that's important for people to understand the nuances of that.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about joy, so with your experience, the what was the moment where you're like, as you eloquently said, my I had to part ways with my company.
Yeah.
What was the moment that made you realize that okay, this is the time?
Oh, I I love Greek mythology, and there's this character Icarus, and Icarus had wings that were attached by with wax, and so he flew too close to the sun, his wings melted, and he crashed to the ground. And I would used to say to my team all the time, my leadership team, that closer you fly to the sun, there's always a chance that your wings are going to melt. And that's what happened for me. I was in a situation where new leadership came in. I mean, it's the same old story, Tim. Everybody's heard it. Leadership comes in, new leadership comes in, different ways, different perspectives, different people they want in roles. And so we made a mutual decision that it was my time to run. And and at first, I never thought I was one of those people who attached my identity to my title until I didn't have one. And then I had to really think about it. Okay, well, so why is that? And at the same time, what is it that you really want, Cheryl? And then when I thought about it, I realized that I needed to burn the boats and bet on myself.
Fantastic. Well, I'm a firm believer that betting on yourself is one of the best things you can do. Uh, Even if you aren't sure about it at the beginning, it teaches you so much about yourself, and the learning and growth from that is
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And
incredible.
I mean, let me tell you something. It was terrifying to make that decision because I never thought I had an entrepreneurial spirit, despite the fact that my dad was an entrepreneur, my sister had been an entrepreneur, my husband is an entrepreneur. I was one of those people who looked at them and said, that's not me. But then when I really, really thought about it, when I put my inner critic to the side, which I call Beatrice, we could talk about her if you want to. I realized, hey, you know what? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? If I wasn't afraid, I would take a chance on myself. Then I'll have no regrets in life.
Fantastic. Um, I'd love to know a bit more about over the years how you saw your leadership change and what made you come to the realization that joy was the missing ingredient in that.
It's interesting because joy has always been an ingredient in my life.
Okay.
I I was born joyful. I think all of us were born joyful. But my mom said that I was just an unusual child because from the time I was a baby, she didn't know if I needed changing. She didn't know if I was hungry. I was just like this love lump in the cradle, just
A love lump. I love it.
love lump, just completely happy, right? Just kind of gurgling, and I've had not a care in the world. And that spirit, that type of like energy has been with me my entire life, Tim, and has been a part of my leadership from the time I was a co-captain of kickline in high school all the way through to a variety of leadership roles that I played in corporate. But what happened was, I think it was something I never really reflected on. I never really thought about it. It was just kind of like who I was and who I am. I didn't really think about it until I bumped up against a leader that I talk about in my book. And I call her Janet. And this leader, she was just extremely toxic. You know, they say hurt people hurt people. She was hurt herself. And I don't know, she just didn't know where to place that hurt. But this is somebody, if you could think about every horrible boss, remember that movie Horrible Bosses? If you could think about every single horrible boss you've ever had in your career and smush them all together into one like avatar, that was Janet. And it was the first time in my life where my joy was ambushed, under attack. And it was, it was a very, very stressful time. I have multiple sclerosis. And so for me, stress is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. And so my hands would shake in meetings. I mean, to the point where I couldn't write. I had a really, really hard time functioning. And my neurologist sent me to therapy because she said, you've got to find a way mentally to deal with the stress, because if not, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. And so I listened to her, I followed her advice, but it was just a really, really difficult time. And when you have something that's part of who you are that you almost take for granted, and then you allow someone, right? Because I gave her the power to try to take that away from me. When they try to take it away from you, you will do anything you can in order to protect it once you're awake and realize that that's what's happening. And so in this time in my life now, when I was thinking about what can I do to help leaders, I realized that the message because Janet, she didn't lead from that place of joy. She led from fear and all the things that come along with leading from that place. But if you lead from fear, or if you lead fearful, either way, it's, the end result is almost the same. Your employees are disengaged. It leads all the way to the bottom line, no matter what road you take. And so just thinking that through, wondering like, well, what can I do to help make a difference? Saving one leader at a time, if I have to.
Mhm. Yeah, and we all know the impact that a leader can make on the team, the results, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think, despite knowing, we severely underestimate that impact that it has. And when we get into conversations like this about joy and even leadership development, I feel leadership development, so many different programs out there underplay the impact of just being a nice person to be around.
Oh my God. I know, but you're leading human beings.
Yeah.
I may have told you this story before, but I remember reporting to someone, not Janet, another Janet Jr., let's just call her. And she said, oh, Cheryl, she's like, I absolutely love being leadership. It would be a perfect job if it wasn't for the people. Ridiculous is that? And I sat there. She was my boss. I'm just kind of like, okay, let me just take my notes. And inside, I'm like, what are we talking about here? Who are you leading if you're not leading people? Makes no sense.
Yeah.
But there are many out there who have that same sentiment. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we see so many, and a lot of coaching I do is in technical spaces,
Mhm.
engineering, even healthcare and things. So you get a lot of technical, brilliant subject matter experts that get promoted into leadership roles, and they're amazing at their technical skills, but now they're a leader and they're trying to lean on their technical skills. Their identity's shifted, and it's not that they want to be mean or a bad boss. They just don't have the skills or the mindset shift to see their perspective from a different lens. And hey, oh, I'm a people leader now.
Yes, I am a people leader, not a process leader.
Yeah.
Right? You are a people leader, and then the work gets done through people. And I love what's happening now, though, Tim, with AI and how organizations are approaching it, because everybody's having that like, oh, sugar moment. but in realizing that, okay, with AI, now I really have to focus on the human. And am I ready for that? Am I prepared for that? Do I know how to do that? And we're talking like, organization wide, not even just, individual leaders. It's a
Yeah.
very, very interesting time. It's a good time.
Well, and on that note, you've talked about joy and being a joyful person. What's the difference between a joyful person and a joyful leader?
That's a good question. I think that you can lead from, if you are leading from joy, so if you are a joyful leader, then you are creating a space where a human being who is in your care, I like to say, can show up as their real selves and work from that place. So they can be creative, they can be innovative, they can make mistakes, they can say the things to you that need to be said. So you'll have a team of folks who, when you get to the end of a meeting and everybody, like, does everybody agree? And everybody's shaking their heads and saying yes, they really, really mean it. As opposed to what happens most of the time, which is like, everybody's like, yeah, we agree. You agree, I agree, I agree. And then they leave, and then they're outside the room or the Zoom call and the text messages start. It's like, what the hell is Cheryl talking about? Do you agree with that? No, doesn't she realize that we can't do this because of this? But no one is saying it in the meeting.
The meeting after the meeting.
The meeting after the meeting, which is the reason why decisions never really happen. Like, they get kind of like kicked down and reviewed over and discussed over and over again because people are afraid. So if you are a joyful leader, then you are creating a space that is absence of fear. And the joyful person is harder to answer, Tim, because I do truly believe that everybody has their own definition of what joy means to them. But at the end of the day, it really is about being in alignment with yourself and leading from who you truly are. And oh, by the way, if you don't like people, it's
Don't be a
okay.
leader.
Don't be a leader.
Exactly.
Don't be a leader. I say in my book, my provocatively, debatable core theme is joy is my chief operating officer. And if it's not yours, then you will lose the right to call what you're doing leadership. There'll be nobody, you look behind you and there's nobody there. You have to lead from that place.
And some of that, I would say, to go into, not to go down a deeper conversation on that, but the way organizations are structured and the only path to call it success in most organizations is to keep climbing the ladder. And that means leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And even if someone doesn't really want leadership, they aren't maybe good at it or don't have the desire to learn, they still often get promoted into those roles because, well, that's just the next rung of the ladder.
Rung on a ladder. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But guess what, though? Okay, so I'm somebody who I aspire to continue to move up in an organization. And that means I'm going to have to, in addition to leading people, I've got to strategize. I've got to, there's a whole bunch of different things I need to do. You have to understand team dynamics. Okay, so not only are you responsible for just like leading a person, you also have to figure out how to lead a group of persons, right? A group of people in order to be successful. If you don't have the goods, but you want the goods, you can be helped.
Absolutely, yeah.
You can be helped. You can be developed. But it's not about like a quick training.
No, you don't go to a half day workshop on leadership and all of a sudden become a leader.
Yes, exactly. You had good warm cookies and yummy salad or whatever, and like all of a sudden you're a leader. But that's part of this is another thing that gets me. The leadership development industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Organizations spend billions of dollars every year they're spending the same money every year for the same results every year. They are developing their leaders, but leaders are not transforming. something is broken there. And I think it's because we don't have the patience or the time. I can't say it's not the resources because the organizations are spending the money over and over again. But if we really, really take the time to help our leaders to transform their behavior, you will start to see that needle move.
Absolutely. And a huge part of that, I've had tons of conversations on this, is the mindset of the executive team and the culture within the organization to really say, why are we doing this training or this workshop?
Yeah.
What's our desired outcome?
Oh, yes.
And how are we going to measure that? How's the needle going to move based on doing this training?
Mm-hmm.
Most times companies can't define that. It's
Right.
like, hey, we've packed your head full of knowledge, but there's no follow-up. There's no uh, check-ins on, hey, is this actually being implemented?
Right. Is it
How is
working?
it? Yeah. How is it changing our culture? How is it changing how leaders show up?
Oh, but guess what happens though? Because there's that churn of leadership. So, you have maybe like a 2 to 3 year cycle where you've got a team that's responsible for executing a strategy and making it happen. And then what happens right when like the going gets good, another leader comes in, wipes out what's going on here, and you start all over again. And then you go another 2, 3 years, and then that leader gets wiped out because there's another one on top, and then you start all over again. And this is the reason why the same money gets spent year after year, because I guess at an organizational level, the strategy needs to be the strategy. Somebody needs to see and pull that thread all the way through. We're talking about leadership development now in order to see those changes. But when the leaders change and the strategy changes, but it's the same strategy just with a different name or something like that, and you're starting all over again,
Yeah.
there's no joy in that.
Shuffling the deck chairs on the Titanic, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. A bit of that for sure.
Yeah. And so
Sure.
when you talk about joy, I believe having joy is so important in leadership and in organizations. But
Yeah.
when we talk about like the real tangible day to day, people are like, oh, that's great in theory, but in practical implementation, how does it show up? Like, what are some examples you have of how that shows up for a typical leader?
I was going to think about if we're talking about a specific leader, it really is about knowing yourself. That's where it starts and figuring out what those gaps are. So I created a methodology to talk about in my book called the Joy Shift Method. Honestly, at the end of the day, Tim, it's a very simple transformational framework where you have to start with awareness. So if you are sitting there wondering, I was talking to one of my clients the other day, and he picked up my book and he said, "Damn, Cheryl, I read your book and I realized that I've got gaps here, here, here. Like I thought I was leading from like a really good place, but now I'm understanding that there are some gaps that are missing that I want to fill." And I'm like, that is amazing because that is exactly where it starts. It starts with what I call joy aware, is just being aware of where you are as a leader and being honest with yourself. If you don't have to be honest with anybody else, but start with just being honest with yourself about where you really are and where you want to be. And then from there, you can embrace the changes that need to be made. You can commit to them and then you can put them into motion.
Hmm.
But it has to start with you having a desire to, to be willing to be honest with yourself. And then you can move forward from that place. And it's different for everybody. The journey is going to be different because the gaps are going to be different.
Yeah. One thing that comes to mind there, and it's a conversation I've had with countless executive coaching clients, is once that awareness is there, what's the mindset with which you're approaching that change?
Mhm.
Because a lot of, especially high performing, driven, successful leaders, they see these gaps and then they start beating themselves up about it. They're like, oh, I'm horrible. And it's this negativity driving that change.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about joy, I often think when you go from the growth mindset standpoint, and to talk about positive intelligence, the saboteur versus the sage.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
PQ.
yeah, PQ. So when you approach it from the sage perspective, joy becomes part of that because you're excited to create this change, and you're bought into it, and you see the potential and the opportunity
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
seeing it as like a slight on yourself as a person.
Yeah. I mean, it's exciting because you know that I mean, there's a place that you're trying to get to. And then like that's why that awareness is so powerful because then it can set you in motion. And I'm so happy you brought up the PQ because that, I mean, it is such a powerful tool when you realize what is getting in the way. When you look at that through a joy lens, I do that with my clients all the time. When we look at their saboteurs through the lens of joy, and joy is a leadership infrastructure and operating system, not puppies and kittens. Then it's like, then the lights go off. It's like, oh, wow, I see now how these certain things are getting in the way of me being able to execute and show up the way I want to show up. And here are some things I can do about that. And it's a work in progress. We're all a work in progress.
Of course, yeah. And you bring up the joy's your COO, and
Yeah.
so to dive a little bit deeper into the operational rigor of how to approach leadership and work and organizational function from a joy standpoint, how do you get clients to understand that and help them start creating that change after they've had that awareness personally?
It's a lot of conversation and it takes a lot of vulnerability because the first step being awareness, you have to accept, which is the next step, embracing. You have to accept the fact that this is where you are. And for a lot of folks that I work with on an individual basis, that means having conversations, real conversations with those who report to them and having real conversations about how does this person show up. So it's kind of like a 360, Tim, but more so like a live 360 where I'm having real conversations in the room with those leaders who also, I mean, they have to trust me that I'm going to create a safe space where we can have those kind of conversations. But it is amazing what comes out of those evaluations, those conversations, and then you start to see the themes, you start to see the patterns. And then when I bring that back to the leader, of course, no attribution to who said what. Not, I would say like the majority of the time, probably like 98% of the time, the leader, the lights go off because ultimately when they lay their head on their pillow at night, they already know these things. For most leaders, the information that they're getting about how they show up for their team is not a surprise if they're really honest with themselves. If they're really so that's where it starts, and then it's a matter of really figuring out what are they willing to commit to in order to make that shift, and then lead from that place, and then them holding themselves accountable and others holding them accountable as well to ensure that it happens. And it does, it works, but it comes down to the human at the end of the day. It really is not rocket science.
Yeah. It reminds me a bit of the presentation I did on Wednesday for this HR group. It was called Business Sponsored Burnout, and talks about how sustainable human performance requires different things than most people think, and about how the difference between pressure and performance. And what you're talking about is exactly that. When you start to have those authentic questions and you're leading from a different perspective versus we're just driving for results. Like, hey, what about the people driving those results?
What about them?
How do we help them bring the best out? And what does that require from me as a leader to do that?
Yeah.
Yes, we still need to deliver results, but what's reasonable and realistic based on where our humans are at this point.
Yeah. And there's nothing soft. Like I've always had like an annoyance with the word soft skills
Oh,
because
yeah,
there's absolutely nothing soft about those skills. They're the hard ones, really.
yeah,
Right? They're the durable ones. They're the transferable ones. They're the ones you take with you no matter what role you're playing. You need those skills. You need to understand and you need to be able to relate to other human beings. I mean, gosh, even if you're working with your AI agents and bots, you need to be able to relate from a human perspective.
yeah.
Right?
I've had that conversation with a lot of leaders as well. As the skills of leadership, I believe, apply to every single human,
Yeah.
even if you're an individual contributor. Very
Yeah.
soon, if not now, you're working with AI agents. And so, in order to performance manage, communicate effectively, and design the outcomes from AI agents, you need leadership skills to be able to do that. You're managing an AI agent, not
Yeah.
another human.
Yes, absolutely. And I have found just in my own work that I get better results from my AI agents when I speak to them as if they are human. That's when that I mean, human beings did develop these agents. Let's not forget that either.
Yeah. Well, and the inherent biases that are involved in that.
Yes, yes, the inherent bias, all of it, absolutely. Yeah.
And so you talk about the organizational level. What are the hidden costs that you see not getting measured by companies with this traditional leadership approach versus leading with joy?
Well, this is not going to sound very fair, but because I think that organizations are out there measuring what they think they should be measuring, right down to engagement. But perhaps I'm thinking that an organization needs to really, really think about what do they mean when they talk about employee engagement. And because Tim, at the end of the day, I think organizations are measuring a whole bunch of stuff. Ultimately, what are they doing about what they're measuring? I
Mhm.
worked in an organization that measured everything up one side and down the other. And then the information is sitting in front of you, and then yet at the end of the day, leaders were not held accountable for the information, the data that they had right there in their hands. And so what does it matter if you're measuring?
Yeah.
So so I would say it's for me, it's not about, I think there are a lot of experts out there who could talk about, the finesse and the unique nooks and crannies of data. But ultimately, an organization that is actually taking that data, holding their leaders accountable and their employees accountable too. It's so funny. We always talk about leaders and employees as if leaders are not employees. But holding everybody accountable for the changes, the behavioral changes that need to take place in order to move the needle. That is where I believe the joy comes in.
Yeah. And going back to a bit of the soft skills that you talked about before, soft skills,
Mhm.
that a lot of people think, oh, if I'm leading with joy, that means I have to lower standards. I have to, I'm like, yeah. What
Oh,
do you say to people that say that?
it reminds me of a conversation that I have often about the difference between nice and kind. Right? Because when you're talking about like feedback, right? So like it's nice. The nice thing, if you've got spinach in your teeth, Tim, and I just look at you and I'm like, I continue talking to you and I don't say a word, right? I may be, some would say that's nice. I don't want to embarrass you, etc. But the kind thing for me to do would be like, Tim, take care of that, right? I don't want you going out in the world with spinach in your teeth. It's the same thing in life, or specifically organizations in the workplace. You have to be able to tell folks what they need to hear. It is not kind for someone to sit in a performance review 6 months or at the end of the year and being told you sucked all year. Well, when were you going to tell me? oh, well, but this is what it is. This is your review. And then next thing you know, a couple months later, you're out. What? What? And so there are a lot of folks out there who are leading from this place. And so it's just interesting to me because a joyful leader, one who's not leading from fear, will tell you all along the way. I'm not waiting for 6 months or to the end of the year to say that you're not performing and doing the things that you need to be doing. But I'm not going to make you feel like an idiot either. I'm not going to completely obliterate you as a person, as a human being. But I'm going to help you get there. Or if you can't get there, then there are steps we need to take in order for you to not be here anymore. I mean, but it's still the right thing to do.
Absolutely. And what you've just highlighted right there with that example is the how leading from joy and those important conversations does drive results, because someone who hears feedback right away, even if it's uncomfortable, is able to make changes. And then
Yeah,
they're not surprised at their quarterly or their annual
never.
review.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I can tell you, you could bring anybody in who has reported to me throughout my decades of leadership, and they'll tell you, "Oh no, Cheryl she doesn't sugarcoat, but at the same time, I will help you, but I care about you as a human, and I'm going to relate to you on that level and tell you what you need to hear in order to be better." Or perhaps this may not be the role for you. And then I'll help you move on to whatever it is.
Yeah,
That's honest and that's kind and that's joyful.
I love it. And you brought up a great point. And in coaching, we have a phrase that's yes and. And so it's,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I care about you. And here are the expectations and the high results that I expect.
Yeah,
And let's talk about how we can work together to help you accomplish that.
yeah, absolutely.
But so many leaders are either not saying anything or, as you said, ripping them apart and then letting them put the pieces back together on their
Yeah.
own without providing the support.
I had a leader one time tell me, she said that the only way I can get my team to get things done is I just have to be mean. I have to be mean. They've got to be scared. Otherwise, they're not going to do what I need them to do. And I just said to her, I was like, well, imagine if you treated them like humans, like adults, which is what we all are. Imagine the results you would get then. Have you tried that? And she just looked at me like I was crazy.
Yeah.
She didn't last very long, by the way.
And it's nice to hear that in some organizations, people like that don't last long, but in many organizations, they keep getting promoted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the people that go from level to level to level with like 50 to 80% turnover in their teams every year because they're just driving people out, but they're the drill sergeant that gets results. And the company's like, well, they're producing results, they're delivering,
Yeah. I
but
mean,
at what cost?
yeah. At what cost the bodies that are around? That was the issue with Janet. She got results. She got results, but only to a certain point. And again, imagine the results that she would have received or experienced if she led from a different place.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. That's the unknown. That's the unknown, right?
So, yeah. And when you talk about underperformance, so someone's not delivering,
Right.
how do you approach those conversations with joy
Oh, just as
from a joy perspective?
before, yeah. It's sitting down and having a real conversation about what is your perspective. You tell me how are things going for you? What is your opinion about your work result? This is what I see. Tell me what you see. What's working? What's not working? And then the person, and by the way, in order to have these conversations, you have to you have to have that relationship all along the way. Otherwise, you're not going to get the honesty from the other person to realize that, you know what, Tim, I'm so glad you brought it up because right now I'm just not I'm not feeling this. I'm struggling, but bum, bum, bum. And then it's like, okay, now we can do something to fix it.
Yeah.
Which means you got to say hello in the morning. You got to say good afternoon, go to lunch sometimes, say good night, ask about the kids, ask them how that dental appointment went. I mean, you really have to care. And people will walk through walls for you. Tim, I have laid off people face to face who have asked me, how are you doing, Sheryl? I know this is hard for you. And they're the ones who are out of a role, out of a job. That's from the relationship I built with them over time, caring about who they are. And it's the same thing having those difficult conversations. A difficult conversation is having a conversation with a human being and treating them and that conversation the way you would want someone to treat you. You would want someone to talk to you and ask how you feel. How are you showing up? What's going on? What's right? What's wrong? And then
Yeah.
have a real, meeting of the minds as what we're going to do about it.
Yeah. And I love that approach. And in, as you said, fear-based systems, fear-based organizations,
Yeah.
that approach can get attacked even.
Yes,
How
I've seen that.
how do you combat that, or how do you deal with it?
So I like to say that this message is not for everybody, right? It's just not. I mean, I'm just being real.
Yeah.
This is not. There are organizations out there that may know this inherently somewhere and want to really make a change. I've worked with some organizations that really, really like, we have got to get this right. Let's do this. And there are others who could care less. And they've been motivated, they've been working one way for a long time. They're rewarded for it, and they're not gonna change. And I'm just not even I don't even have the presence of mind to even try to convince. And I talk about, in my book, like, there's the dim, the hungry, and then there are those who are skeptical about all of this. And it goes for an individual or it goes for an organization. Dim, they lost it, they want it back. Hungry, they don't have it, but they want it. Skeptical is like, skeptical. And then there are those who are like, she's crazy. This whole thing makes absolutely no sense. And you know what? I'm not worried about them.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about them because I think there are enough that are in this other bucket that are willing to sit down and then really, really think about the hard work that needs to take place in order to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. So what is it? What do you feel is behind the reason that healthy leadership sometimes threatens unhealthy cultures?
Because we've been doing it one way for so long. And it takes time. We don't have time. We don't have time. We want right now, we want everything really, really fast. And when you're talking about true behavioral change in a human being, it's just not fast. It's not fast. You can't put, even with the work that I do, it's like you can't let's say you put together a joy leadership initiative. We're going to do, that's it. We need joy in this organization and I want everybody joyful by the end of this year. It takes time. You talk about human beings, right? If you decide,
I demand that you be happy
I demand
and joyful.
happiness, right? If you decided you're going to put, everyone's walking around with those new rings that are on, I forget
Yeah.
the cars or what have you. Everyone's trying to figure out their sleep patterns and all that kind of stuff. How long does it take for you to literally change a behavior as beautiful as going to sleep? Okay. So then how long is it going to take you and then a whole big ship of an organization to change direction? It takes time, but it
Mhm.
is worth it. It is worth it.
Absolutely. And that's a great point that, there's going to be some resistance to change, and so
Yeah.
how do you differentiate between normal resistance to change and a system that's protecting dysfunction?
Yeah, well, that comes down to a system that's protecting dysfunction is a fearful system, Tim.
Yeah.
Right? It's a fearful system because you've got leaders who are at the helm who are just used to things being done a certain way. And you know what? If you have been rewarded for leading a certain way your entire career, and then you're being then asked to change how you lead, that's fear. But it's fear about like how you see yourself. Well, if I'm not like slamming my fist, if I'm a fearful, fear-driven leader, if I'm not slamming my fist, no one ever taught me how to like lead another way. And what if I can't do it?
Yeah.
That sounds really vulnerable to me. That sounds really scary to me. I don't think anyone's going to take me seriously. And now I've lost my mojo. Not doing that. We're going to continue on, until I retire and someone else can figure it out.
I love it. But that's so common because it, you've, especially when you get to the C-suite, VP C-suite level,
Yeah.
you got there on what you feel is your quality of work and how you show up and who you are as a person. And if that's not working or you're being asked to change, it's an identity crisis.
It is an identity crisis.
Yeah.
And who wants to deal with an identity crisis?
Yeah.
Right? But if you truly, truly care about moving the needle, because at some point in time, it is going to come to bite your organization. Because it's that toxic, that poison, that toxin seeps into your organization all the way down to your bottom line, all the way down to your customer, all the way down to the folks who are working for you, who quit and stayed about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
You're going to see it. You're going to see it in your numbers. You're already seeing it in your numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to shift gears a bit and look towards the future,
Yeah.
you said that when we envision the future of work, we need to place humans at the heart of it. What do you think needs to happen for that change to occur?
No. More conversations like the one that you and I are having right now. I belong to a cohort of leaders from all different industries, from like retail to food, insurance, everything in between. And we are focusing on the human future of work. And we talk about this all the time. It definitely starts with conversation. It starts with realization that something needs to change. It starts with an awareness of the need for, vulnerability and that real talk. I used to say at my organization, straight talk for soldiers. You have to be able to have like really straight talk about where we are and where you were talking before about the outcome that we're looking for. What is the outcome that we're looking for? And then sort of like moonwalk your way. I don't know, Michael movie's out right now. Moonwalk your way into making that happen. But you have to be willing to do the work in order to get there. So we're having lots of conversations about that right now, hoping that we can kind of like sandwich it, get to the hearts and minds of those at the C-suite VP level that you talked about. But then also, folks who are on the front lines, their expectations for what they're looking for, the generations are changing.
Absolutely.
What I know, my nieces and nephews who are in the workforce right now, what they expect from their employer is very, very different than what I expected from my employer when I first started out. It's very, very different. Very different. We, as organizations, we need to catch up with what those expectations are.
Mm-hmm. And how to figure out how to balance results and delivery with sustainable human performance and joy. Because when those blend,
it's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And the results are outstanding.
Absolutely. You can't, right. It's got to be a balance there, right? It can't be completely all, it's going to sound strange to say, but you know what I mean? You can't be all about the human.
Yeah.
Right. And nothing about the business. but it can't be all about the business and nothing about the human. There's got to be a balance, but recognizing that ultimately, foundationally, we are human beings having this experience on this planet, right? And if we all stopped working today, everything would stop.
Yeah.
Everything would stop. So it is about us. It is about us.
Yeah. And I've had executives say to me, look, I'm not running a country club here. We have to, get these results. I'm like, yes. And,
Yes,
um,
and
imagine what happens if all your people are thriving and they're passionate and they're bought into the purpose and the vision, and everyone's working with discretionary effort and they're taking time to recover so they can come back energized the next week. And
woo,
imagine that.
imagine that. Imagine that. And there's some organizations out there that understand that and are getting it right. But I think that they are sort of like, in a pond of blue fish. They're like the little bright little orange and red and green ones that you see every once in a while. But I think most of the organizations out there are struggling with this.
Absolutely. So what's your, to start wrapping things up, what is your takeaway or your recommendation for the leaders that's listening right now that wants to say, I'm so bought into this, I want to make it happen in my team? What can they do starting Monday morning?
Oh, what they can do Monday morning is they could sit down, we could play this podcast,
Yeah.
call me or you, right? But all kidding aside, they can sit down with their team and start really having a conversation. It just starts with a conversation. It starts with the person. Have the conversation about where they are, where they want to go, with they're contained in this context, and then really start talking about what they need to do in order to get there. And it's amazing. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you do that. Everybody's thinking the same thing at all levels. Everybody's thinking the same thing. All you have to do is actually be brave enough to talk about it out loud in order to make a difference.
At the beginning, you talked about the powerful question that if I stepped away tomorrow, what kind of leadership culture would remain? Or if everyone quit, won the lottery, how long would the business last? In order to answer that question honestly, what should leaders be paying more attention to?
Leaders need to pay more attention to how they're showing up every day. How are you showing up every single solitary day? If you're having a really bad day, do you pull, if something happened to you in the morning, do you pull that thread through your entire day? Do you make one unhappy moment an unhappy day? And is everyone experiencing your unhappy day because of how you are showing up? How are you showing up? It starts there, right? And being honest about that. Even I have some leaders, some teams I work with, where they are they're doing a kind of like an energy audit every single day. I'm calling it kind of like a joy audit every single day, thinking through how am I showing up today, and then looking at the pattern. Mm-hmm. Brave enough to start with yourself, and then having those conversations with other people who have the joy and pleasure of working with you and experiencing you on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. That's family.
A thought that comes to mind for me on that is your question of if everyone won the lottery, how long would the business last? What if we reframe that question to say, hey, if everyone won the lottery, what do I need to do so that they would still come back to work even though they won the lottery?
Yes, I love that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. If we all won the lottery, but I really love my work. I can still hang out here. I would do it for free.
Yeah.
So
I don't need I'm doing it because I don't need the money, but I love it. And I'm making an impact, and I've got a great team around me, and I love the people.
Yeah. And the
work, feel respected and honored. And
yeah. Yeah. And that's not Pollyanna-ish too. No. I mean, it possible. I know people who work in environments like that, but they did the work.
Yeah.
They did the work. Gotta do the work.
Awesome. Well, Sheryl, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and joy. It's where can people find you?
Oh, well, you can easily find me on LinkedIn, Sheryl Raphael Whitaker, and also on SherylRaphaelWhitaker.com. And Tim, I have a show, a live show that streams every Wednesday on LinkedIn and YouTube called It Starts With Joy Live. Real Leaders, Real Talk. And I hope that you're going to join me on there one day.
I would love to. We'll set that up.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, and have an amazing weekend, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay. Thanks, Tim. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I loved it.
That wraps up another episode of the Working Well podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now, which guests or topics would you like to see featured on the show? Message me through LinkedIn or on the contact page of timborys.com with your ideas. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tim Borys with Fresh Wellness Group, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.